Okay, so we can get back to our beginning this morning where we were talking about sharing an accessibility experience that either you had or you witnessed someone having. And Lourdes was going to tell us about her experience. So I'm going to let her start.
I was just gonna speak from experience as a student. I became legally blind when I was 14, and at first my
Or
teacher
my H
didn't
key.
know what to do for me. I was in private school, in Puerto Rico, so they really had never had a student with a disability, let alone a visual one, to that degree. So
For
it was
headings.
a
So I'm
lot
going to
to
try the H.
figure out, but thankfully I had great teachers that worked with me and helped me stay in school, because that was one of the hardest things to face, was not being like there was a possibility of me not being able to stay in school. So when we talk about inclusion and how accessibility can impact someone's life, it's if you're a student and you're at a school, and I mean you already have your group of friends and you're making good progress towards graduating, and then suddenly something happens and you can't see as well as you could. You can't do standardized tests anymore. So that was my experience, and accessibility made the difference in allowing me to finish my and continue my education and to actually stay in the same school. So that's one of the things about inclusion, is that it empowers, it helps with independence. So that's why it's really
Status
important
updates heading level.
for students who are just trying to figure life out. Nothing like being becoming legally blind in the middle of high school. So I appreciate all of you trying to be here to try to make things better.
Who is Pesto the Penguin and why does everyone love him?
Who wants to share next?
So I work with an 8th grade student who's in private school. He's a Braille user and screen reader user. And I've shared the story to a couple people today, but he took the National Latin exam, and the company that administers it told us the online platform was completely accessible. And it generally was. They didn't monitor their alt text very well. A couple of the questions, the alt text gave the answer, which I told the student, more power to you. And then at the end, there was a passage that the students were to read in Latin and then answer questions about it. Well, it turned out it was a PDF picture of a passage, and the alt text just said, this is a passage, without giving any of the information in the passage. So it was a pretty big fail when the student had to rely on me to read that Latin passage to him, not ever having taken Latin. I don't know how many times he told me that a V is pronounced like a W in Latin. And I'm like, I grew up Catholic. We never pronounced a V as a W when we sang our songs in Latin. But, it is supposed to be a W. So it was a pretty tedious process at that last part. And while he could access most everything, there was just this big fail at the end that was not accessible. And so whoever did their alt text or reviewed it just really missed the boat on that.
Thank you. Who wants to go next? I'm sure you guys at Academy have heard some crazy stories about accessibility or needing help with something that you might be like, oh. Thanks, Jenna.
Hello. So yeah, we actually just interviewed as a student in high school, I believe, and his father. And he is a user with low vision, and so he needed magnification. This is more, again, on the AT side. And so the school, he was using a magnifier, but it's big and bulky and it's not easy to move around. And now he's getting older and
So it's
moving.
got each of these articles
And so they
at a
recommended a
heading 3.
tablet.
So
Makes a lot of
now I
sense,
know if I want to
but,
search for an
it took
article,
a semester before he got that tablet. So some denied access there. And then once he got it, you know, we just think our students are digital natives and they're going to figure it out. And they totally know how to use this device and its features without any training. So it really ended up being up to the father and the student and his aide to try to figure it out and make the best use of that tablet and help his teachers understand his need and the usage in their classrooms as well. So there's just, you know, constant barriers in that timeliness aspect in addition to being trained on how to use it.
I mean, think about. Thank you. Think about what I said about we're letting our staff know. 12 weeks. That's a long time. We're asking our textbooks office to start almost 9 months. We really need them to start like a year and a half ahead of when they want to do the adoption. But we agreed on something like 9 or 10 months that they could start to do that. And so I don't know that our districts and whatnot really understand the timeliness of accessible educational materials. Now, I feel like my CIO, not my CIO, my chief academic officer, my CAO might have, she has a little lens on the timeliness. She came into one of my DTOC meetings and, you know, I'm trying to figure all of this stuff out and doing this exception, which the exception is so heavily dependent on the vendor giving us the information. Thought, what was I? Oh, yeah, the CAO. And she said, I want you, this was in, I think, March. And she said, by April 1st, I want you to have every single exception entered because my students will not go without on day 1 of school because of accessibility. But she didn't understand the back end of what went into all that. So I feel like you have people that have that timeliness in mind, but they don't know what to do with that. They don't know how to maneuver that and they're scared. You know, there's a lot of fear that comes with something new and some sort of change. All right, who's next with their accessibility experience?
There's a student in one of our campuses that is an English language learner with parents who were not born here. And he's very physically involved, but cognitively was able to keep up with the material. He had no way to communicate. He was understanding what was going on and to have output with the academic material. It's just so happened that a relative of mine passed away, had a Tobii Dynavox, which is a eye gaze access device, and we were able to arrange to have it donated. I mean, these are the things that have to sort of sometimes occur in public education. And this student now, and using that and shifting things around, using it as a test device, now his own device, to be able to access his curriculum, he can keep up with a lot of the things that are going on that I think his educators did not think that he was able to do. Writing output in the way that he's writing with his alternative pencil, using the communication app and the software, using, you know, Word documents or Google documents, I can't remember which one, to navigate using only his eyes. And so he's been provided access, and I think it's helped reframe a lot of professionals in the district for thinking, if you're physically involved and you can't communicate what you want to say, it doesn't mean that you don't know what's going on and that you can participate. So it's a great story for him.
I'm going to pull a button
else?
list because maybe
So, I didn't quite get the topic, but a situation where accessibility is really helped, right? And
Yes. Any accessibility stories?
I'm an advocate for people with
So I've
traumatic
loaded this
brain
page.
having a car accident. So I know a lot about what the difference between non-accessible for cognitive and accessible. And I guess I wanted to tell the story. I was fortunate enough to 4 years after my accident, I was able to get to St. David's. My accident actually happened in Washington, D.C. Get to St. David's, and St. David's helped me a lot.
And
It's just that I was fortunate enough to intern
So
with John
typically what I
Slayton.
do,
Gosh, this is 2000s. And John was just so curious about, he didn't understand a lot about what cognitive was about. He's so curious. And the story I always tell is him. I have an issue with the screen post-injury where the screen really distorts my ability to understand. And he would put me in front of different kinds of screens, and he would figure out that I would need something bigger or something smaller. I could see that I guess the first thing was that this was back in the day when there were CRT screens, and I could actually see the movement in a CRT screen. So he's trying to move me to technology that would be better. And he was just so curious. And even when he got it wrong, he was just so curious. It was really helpful to just, well, let's try this. Let's try this. That's my story.
So having somebody in your corner that's willing to, that has some tenacity.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. So we were going to ask you a question. I think you may have already covered this. Like, what do ed personnel need to know to help them find? Did we talk about that? No. So this afternoon session was really about like how do you find ed tech products that are accessible? Any product, you know, it could be a productivity tool for your staff, whatever. How do you make sure it's accessible? Any thoughts on what you need to know to do that? What do you need to know in order to find and purchase products that are accessible, digital products that are accessible? Can we do mics? And try this. I'll repeat it. Go ahead and say.
Know the user and how they are going to use.
Okay. Yep. That's right. Know the end user, what they're using. Any other thoughts on this? What else do you need to know? Oh, they're going to take over share. Yes, ma'am.
To know what accessibility elements you're looking for, to see what's embedded, and hopefully how to check for those.
Yep. Okay, so yeah, so some tools may have accessibility features built into them. And so you'll need to know about that. Anything else? They're showing it already?
Some chat.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and go with the answer since apparently it's showing for whatever reason. Okay, so fun with technology today. Yes, so you need to know the laws, right? So in the school system, you really do need to know your laws, or any organization, or what are you bound to meet? And then what standards do those laws point to? Because we've talked earlier today, we defined what WCAG is. And there's some other standards around this. And so you, as a school district, that's what you kind of need to try to start focusing and learning about. Then there's assistive technology, how to manage your vendors, and then understanding basic accessibility concepts. So how many people feel overwhelmed by just these 5 things on the screen, right?
So I've loaded this.
So this is a lot. And so what I'm trying to get everyone to understand is that this is why you cannot be the accessibility police, right? There are things that you have control over, and there are things that the vendor has control over. And part of this whole process is learning how to set those boundaries and to not cross over those boundaries. So today we're going to learn a few tricks about that. And I guess I don't even know who's presenting or how to advance my slides. Okay, so I'm going to go over here now, but it's sharing. Okay, there. I'm going to talk from over here, guys. Desiree, we'll get there, I promise.
It's okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but
Oh.
I've got to get back
Okay.
like several slides here.
Okay.
Okay, guys, we're gonna have to move fast. So we may have to skip over some content since we lost some time. And so we've already talked about the answer here. So I just want to, one of the things that you might hear from vendors is that, well, you know, the standards are always changing and we just can't keep up with them. So I wanted to give you this timeline so that you could tell them, actually, no, they don't change very fast. And when they do change, they don't change very much. With WCAG, what happens is it's an international process. People from all over the world participate, and they make decisions about people with disabilities who have been historically underrepresented in the standards, right? So they're talking right now about trying to add more guidelines and stuff in for people with cognitive disabilities, more maybe for people with low vision. So they're always trying to think about who has been, you know, missed in previous versions. So with the latest version of WCAG, one really important thing that they added was target size. So if you think about people who have tremors, you know, things like that, they need to be able to hit something effectively, right? That wasn't in the guidelines before WCAG 2.2. It is now in the guidelines. So when WCAG is updated, they only add, like I think the last time they only added a total of 6 A and AA, you know, success criteria. So the guidelines don't change that often. They are, I don't know why this keeps coming up over here, but so this timeline is just there for you. This is a very high level timeline, only talking about the 3 versions of WCAG since 2008. That's not a rapid change. And then you know how the government moves. So we don't have to even talk really about the federal statutes. All right, so the next one is I just want to talk briefly about what ARIA is. This stands for Accessible Rich Internet Applications. You will see this in some of the code that we're going to look at this afternoon. You'll hear about it. It's basically a way to enhance what HTML can do, and a lot of it is to help with dynamic stuff. So when the state of something changes, a user hits a button, and you know it causes some change to happen in the application. You know, ARIA can help give feedback for that. If you're thinking about like a test situation, a blind student is taking a test, they come to a radio button group and they need to be told how many radio buttons are in here and which ones are selected and which ones are not selected, right? So ARIA helps with that kind of markup. It helps to enhance what HTML can do. But it's also very complicated and you can mess things up very fast with ARIA. And what you will see, we will see a bad example of code like this today, is that vendors who didn't think about accessibility when they designed their product are trying to go in and fix old code, bad code that did not use HTML native elements in it, and they're using ARIA to fix it, all right? So you can do that if you know what you're doing, but you can also make things worse. All right, so Desiree, I think this is you. This is slide number 92, WCAG success criteria.
Perfect. And you can hear and see me okay?
I can hear you.
Oh, I don't know if my video's on. I guess
It's okay,
it's
don't worry about it.
okay. All right. Well, then I'll turn away from that computer. So the success criterion and basically they're assigned levels of conformance. So you have A, AA, and AAA. And level A is the minimum, the minimum level of conformance. So if you meet, basically the content will be somewhat accessible, but mostly inaccessible to millions of users. Level AA, websites and other digital content conformance to level AA means that they must comply with all the requirements of the success criteria for level A and AA. So they add basically some other ones on there. This is the most common requirement for the legislation and the regulations around the world. So if they meet AA, it's not, if AA is not met, then users will be excluded, and many of them will have difficulty completing tasks. And level AAA is the most accommodating to the greatest number of users. So it's less important. It's very important to note that there are still some users who aren't met because AAA is not met. So basically that's how the levels work. And it's always, the work is always underway to add additional success criteria to these different levels. Okay, that's
Next
90.
slide. Yeah. So it's structured as an outline.
So how WCAG is out, it's like an outline basically. So you have 4 kind of different pieces of this. You have the perceivable, then you have the operable, and you have understandable, and then you have robust. And so under each of those are the different criteria. So let me get back to my notes here because I was just reading the bullet points. So it looks kind of complicated, but basically if you know all of the principles, then you'll be able to tell, okay, underneath each of these principles, there are the guidelines that correspond to that principle. And then there's numbers. So if it's under the first one, the perceivable, then that will be 1 dot whatever. And so 1.2.3 and then et cetera. Everything under perceivable will be under the first level. And the same thing with operable. That's going to be principle 2. All of those criterion under principles will start with the number 2. So, and then you have the understandable and then the robust. So the POUR principles. Let's see. I kind of skipped around a bit, I think.
Okay, so I'll just
Yeah.
quickly say that, okay, so under each of the principles, you have guidelines. Guidelines are the goal, like what is it that the designer of content needs to be doing, right? Then underneath that, you will have success criteria. This is where you define success. What does that look like? So when you hear somebody say, well, they don't comply with WCAG, they're talking about the success criteria. They're talking about whether or not they were able to meet those measurable outcomes. That's what a success criterion is. All right, so Desiree, if you don't mind, I'm just going to quickly try to run
Yeah, I'm
through
trying to
this
find
next.
you here.
I can't, well, I don't think it's showing. What is it showing? There we go. All right, so so this is an example where you can see how it's organized like an outline. And so the principle is numbered, so perceivable is number 1. The very first guideline under the perceivable principle is text alternatives, right? So that's the guideline, that's the goal. We need to have a text alternative for things that are images, basically. So then the success criteria is that you're providing some sort of a description for non-text content. So is it there or is it not there? Yes or no? And that's how you determine if they've met this particular point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing over there for a second, and I'm going to share over here. Because what I'd like for you to do is, how many of you have the notes document up? Okay, if you don't have the notes document up, I'm going to go ahead and walk through this, but there's a section in here of the most common success criteria that we kind of have been running into and we've been testing ed tech products. All right, so these are things you're very likely to see when we start to test things this afternoon. And so we were just going to practice here for just a second and have you kind of go to one of these. They're links, and if you can't do it, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and see what miraculous things happen whenever I hit the link here. So I'm going to drag this over. Hopefully you can see this. So what this did is it took me to this success criteria 2.4.2 page title. So you can see up here in the URL that this says w3.org. You can't see any of that because you got to stop. Okay. I thought I was sharing. Stop sharing. Is that what you want? Uh-huh. Let me share again. Okay. This is an interesting experience, guys. We're learning, we're growing. Our character is being developed today, right? So we're learning and growing together under stress. All right. Yes, this is the screen you should be seeing. So this is WCAG that you're seeing on the screen right now, right? This is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines in all of its glory. It's a very overwhelming document, which is why we're talking about the structure. You'll see in the URL, it says w3.org, and then it says TR, and then it says WCAG 2.1. So you know you're in work version 2.1. And then it gives you the name of the success criteria that we're looking at. That success criteria is also here at the top of the page. With each success criteria, you have a brief description of what it is. So for this one, page titled means if I'm a blind user, I know what page I'm on because the page has a title, right? And so it's programmatically something that I can find with my assistive technology. But if I don't know what it means, they have these nice little documents over here. So I always send developers to the understanding document. And I just want to show this to you very quickly. If you go to the understandings document, again, this can be very overwhelming. Like if you're not a technical person, and again, we're not the accessibility police, right? This can be overwhelming, but it's got a couple of things I want to point out to you. It will tell you the goal. It will tell you what you need to do, why it's important. Then it has this really nice intent section where it says, this is why we wrote this. This is why this is important. So this is good for developers to kind of understand, like, why do I have to do this? Well, this will tell you why. Then it will also give them, it'll tell them what the benefits are, but it'll give them some techniques. So this navigation bar over here, this page contents that comes up in the understandings document is the same for every success criteria. So the pattern is the same, all right? So I'm pointing this out to you. I do not expect for you to memorize this because we're not the accessibility police, all right? But I want you to understand the structure in case you need to go to one of these, you find something that's wrong when you're doing testing and the vendor tells you, no, I did that, it's fine. You can say, no, I think you need to read this document, right? Put it back on them to go read it. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and go back and play musical computers here. Go back over here. Can we share? Are we sharing? Do what now? Move the Zoom over here. Move the Zoom over here. That? I don't think, is that? No. They can see. I think we need to stop sharing. How do we stop sharing? I don't think you are. Huh? I don't think you are sharing. Session. Well, this is showing. This screen here is what they're seeing. They're seeing this screen? Mm-hmm. They can't see this.
that.
Okay,
There's-
can you see this screen now, deciphering? Okay, thank you. Sorry, guys. All right, so now, I can't what?
Can't see it online. What we're seeing is your room.
Can we hit escape and then reshare? Here, let's just reshare. Right down here. This right here. How about now? Can you see anything?
No,
No.
we see the front of the room.
Hey, Desiree. Do you have the presentation pulled up, or Deb, do you have the presentation pulled up? I don't think, Deb, you have the latest version.
I have my notes and I'm on my Mac because my camera wasn't working, so I'm not in the PowerPoint. But I have my notes.
Okay, so
Here.
the lesson learned here is if we can get this back up, I will not switch back and forth between the computers to show you guys things.
It
Okay,
seemed like it was working okay this morning.
I
Then
know,
I
we
had
don't
to
know
come
what
back
happened.
in.
Everything blew up. Can you see anything now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, that is not what I wanted to do. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about, and I don't know what happened to our graphics, so this is interesting. We're going to talk about accessibility statements, conformance reports, and EdTech product certifications. These are the three different types of documentation that you will see from vendors. All right, so they're going to have these three things: statement, conformance reports, and certifications. So just quickly, what an accessibility statement is a public declaration. The company says, hey, this is what matters to us as a company, and we really care about accessibility, right? And so in your notes document, there's a whole bunch of ed tech companies in the Word doc. And I unfortunately can't share that because it's not up over there, and I can't hop back and forth between it. So I may over break, try to pull this up so at least I can flip back and forth on one computer. But in your notes document, it's under the vendor documentation, ed tech vendors. There's several different ed tech vendors there, all of which have accessibility statements. And you can look at them. We were going to do an exercise, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to quickly talk through the Savvas Learning. And I don't know that this will even let me share that. Probably not. Can I pull this screen over here? The whole thing, just this tab. Can you guys see this? Okay. Miracles. Okay. All right, so this is the Savvas Learning. I just want to kind of talk through this. When I look at an accessibility statement, I look for words that might make my spidey senses go off, okay? So we're reading here, we say, we strive to make instructional content accessible. Okay, this is good. At least they're not saying that everything that we have is perfectly accessible, so I'm happy about that, right? Because they're saying they're working on it. They're not there yet. Okay, but this last sentence here, we want to ensure that every learner, regardless of ability or assistive technology, is fully supported, right? So, okay. Now, I can't show you this because I don't have the tools on this particular computer, but these check marks here don't pass color contrast, which is one of the success criteria for WCAG. So when I'm looking at an accessibility statement, it's on their accessibility page of all the pages that you should really worry about meeting the objectives on. Color contrast is one of the easiest things to meet, okay? So you kind of look for those kinds of things because this is why we have a problem, guys. We have a marketing problem. This is what I am going to try to drill over and over again as we talk about this today, is that there's marketing and then there's reality, right? So I'm really committed to running 25 miles a week. I'm really committed to it. But you can tell by looking at me that I don't do that, right? So to make a statement that you're really committed to something and that you care about something is one thing. Following through and being transparent and honest about where you are is something entirely different, and marketing gets in the way every time because lawyers. And that's all I have to say there. Okay. So, so let me get back. I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to pray that when I hit this button, somehow, miraculously, it will move to the next thing. It has not. Help me. Okay. All right. Now, there, is that? Oh, okay. We're not going to do this. We're going to skip this. We were going to have you go to your accessibility statement. All of our graphics are gone on this computer, so this is a fun game that we're playing with technology today. But we were going to have you go to your organization and look for your accessibility statement. Remember, we mentioned that earlier today. They're in the references document that we have in the folder. There is a link to the Web Accessibility Initiative's guidance on how to write an accessibility statement. So if your organization does not have an accessibility statement, the Web Accessibility Initiative, WAI, and when you Google it, all kinds of other garbage is going to come up that has nothing to do with the Web Accessibility Initiative, okay? You have to make sure you're going to that specific thing, not level access, not Accessibility, not these other things that come up with people who are paying lots of money to be at the top of your Google search. So they have guidance. It's in our reference sheet, and they even have like a little widget that they'll walk you step by step by step by step through writing an accessibility statement. So that's a good resource. Just want to point that out. Okay, so we are now on a blank page entirely. This was your accessibility look for sheet. We've lost all of our graphics. So you want to skip this in the interest of time?
Yeah, I would say.
Okay, here you go. Say what you want to say, girl.
Don't you love the way she said you want to skip it? And I said, yeah, but I just got something to say. Just really quickly, I mentioned that we ask for the international version of the VPAT in order to complete their accessibility conformance report because it combines 508 as well as WCAG. And so those are both things that we are trying to meet with our accessibility journey or in our accessibility journey. And this ACR look fors was something that I created that's almost like a little rubric. And so really all that I look at, so we don't have the ACR either, Jan? Okay. So I really look at the top of the form. Like I'm not worried about whether as much, I mean, I'm worried about it, but not as much, whether down in the details, whether or not they're checking that they partially support or not. So my look fors that I was going to share with you guys here actually contain things like, is the document version correct? Did you give me what I asked for? Is the document date less than 1 year old? Because we're very specific in our request that it must be. And then the product description. You wouldn't believe how many try to pass off one ACR for everything. Oh, there it is.
Okay, I'm just going to present from here, and we're going to, I don't know, sing and dance during the videos. I'm not sure. We'll just make it up when we get there.
So this is just part of that. If things were working correctly, we'd be able to pull up the whole actual document. But also, I want to know if they have complete and accurate contact information to somebody who is knowledgeable about accessibility. So if you give me a lesser person, like a salesperson, you get dinged for that. So we really want to look at the completeness of that. The notes and exceptions need to be detailed, and they need to clearly state any important exceptions. And then the evaluation methods that needs to be filled out. I want to see something in your evaluation methods about working with a native screen reader user, somebody that is a native user of assistive technology. And then just, did you complete those last bottom sections? Are they filled in? They have to be filled in with something. I mean, it supports what partially supports and does not support and then not applicable. So each part needs to be filled in. So those are kind of the high level things that I'm able to look at before I say, okay, we can work with this ACR.
All right. So yeah, these were the highlighted parts of the ACR itself that she talked about. All right. So EdTech product certifications. Now this is an interesting thing. I don't know what other word to use. About EdTech. Everybody wants to have something certified, right? If you're going to spend money on something, you want to make sure that it does for sure do what it says it's going to do. And so there are certifications, and there's a couple of different organizations that do this. They typically make people pay. The companies have to pay for these certifications. So you need to keep that in mind, that if the company is paying for the certification, that may not necessarily mean that they actually meet the requirements because they're just paying money. And so educational institutions, though, will often look to those certifications and go, oh, well, it's got this certification for this, so it must meet the standards, right? And here's a couple of resources for you on these certifications. So the EdTech Index is basically that, an index of different EdTech products that will tell you what kind of certifications they have. Digital Promise provides different kinds of certifications. And then One EdTech used to be IMS Global. They have certifications for like interoperability, privacy and security. So all of your instructional technology people will be very familiar with the One EdTech certifications. But I want to point out something really important about One EdTech. They're kind of a closed ecosystem, right? They create their standards, then they build what the certification requirements are, then they charge the companies, and then they monitor and make sure that they are actually meeting the objectives, or at least that's what they say they do. Okay, so we believe them because they say it. But they are the ones who create the specifications. They're the ones who certify the specifications. So One EdTech does that. The W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, does not provide any certification for accessibility. The W3C is where the accessibility guidelines come from. So the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines that we all talk about, that comes through the World Wide Web Consortium. So do the HTML certification, so do the HTML standards, the CSS standards, the SVG standards, all things web, right, come through that organization. What they do is they say, well, we're not going to certify anything because we know how many moving parts there are, right? So I, as an EdTech vendor, could create a very perfect, fully accessible, in theory, product. Then tomorrow, the browser that I need to run my product on changes, and now I'm not accessible anymore. So you see, we have this sort of interlocking of many, many different moving parts. And that's why you don't see the W3 raising their hand to go out and certify anything, because they understand this, right? So that's important. Remember that. Now we have some certifications out on the streets around inclusiveness. You can find these on the EdTech Index. CAST has a couple of certifications out. So they have a UDL certification and this alignment to the UDL framework, and then this is an accessibility baseline for the UDL product certification. And then Digital Promise has one for, are you meeting the needs of diverse learners? Okay, so these are some examples of inclusive, and I'm using air quotes here, inclusive certifications that are coming through these different organizations. So CAST offers their certifications in partnership with Digital Promise. And we're going to do a little case study, and we're going to pray that I can figure out how to make the audio work with holding the mic on here. so that you can actually hear the video and see the video. So we're going to do a case study of a product called Nuzella. Now, the reason that we are doing a case study on Nuzella is not because we don't like Nuzella, okay? We love Nuzella. They're very good people. They also happen to have all three of the things that we need to review. They have an accessibility statement online, they have an ACR online and available, and they have the UDL certification. So they had all the things that we need to talk about. That's why we're talking about them. So in their accessibility statement, we pulled a few things out, and it says that we design our platform using accessibility best practice. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, that's a reasonable thing to say. Then they say that they ensure, remember the spidey senses that I told you about earlier? This is one of the words that sends them off for me. We ensure integration with assistive technology such as screen readers. They specifically call out screen readers. So my spidey sensors are going, I wonder about that. Then they say that they conform to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, all right? That's another spidey sense word for me. And then in their statement, they provide a link to their accessibility conformance report, and they say that they update their ACR a minimum of every 6 months. I looked at their ACR. It's 2 years old. So I'm not good at math, but I don't think that's every 6 months. Then they say that their ACR they actually created their ACR by a third-party company, and I really respect this company. This is the Paciello Group. They're some of the best, right? They did the audit for them, and they filled out the report for them, right? So I'm thinking that's a good thing that they had this third-party thing. So that's good. I like that. They only cover the student journey. So nothing for teachers, nothing for anybody else, just the students. Okay, so that's fine. I'd like to see something that covers all, but they only cover the student. And then I went back and checked this after Desiree and I spent some time going through this product together, and Desiree sort of discovered some things. They say that they support meaningful sequence. We're going to learn what that is. Hopefully you'll get to see it in the video. But on their ACR, they said they support it. And I think it's really important. I want to make sure that you understand this now, because a third party, highly respected accessibility company did this ACR and said that they meet meaningful sequence. We're going to talk about what that means in a second, but I just want to point that out. They also say on their own ACR that they do not support page titles on some pages. Okay? Okay. Well, that means a blind person isn't going to know what page they're on, right? So we know that. But remember, they said that they conform to WCAG, but they're also saying they don't support. So, And then they say they partially support some other success criteria. Yes, ma'am, you have a question.
When it comes to testing, is there a standard of how many, like a sample of pages they test, or are they supposed to be testing the entire website?
That is a very good question. Is there a standard of how many pages? No, there is not a standard. So more than likely, they're doing spot checking, because of time, right? You're talking about lots and lots and lots of content, and it's time consuming. Usually like one web page, if you're doing a thorough audit, will take you 3 to 4 hours. Okay. All right, so then they say they partially support some criteria. So we need to get everybody to understand this, okay? If they say they don't support something, they don't conform to WCAG. If they say they partially support something, that means they partially don't support something and therefore don't conform to WCAG, okay? So that's kind of how that works. Language matters. So these are the 2 badges that Nuzella has, the certifications that they have according to the EdTech Index. They have the UDL certification from CAST and the Learner Variability certification from Digital Promise. I talked about this. This costs $500, and it's Are You Meeting the Needs of Diverse Learners? And then here's what the description is for the CAST certification. It says this certification is designed to help inform educators who are evaluating the accessibility and usability of ed tech products. It promises to increase the clarity and transparency in making important purchase decisions. How many people in the room, if you're in the chat online, tell me, from this statement, do you think Newsela is accessible? Maybe because I'm being sarcastic about it, or I've already kind of gave you a spoiler alert, yes?
I already know how this turns out. But it has so many, just looking at all the ingredients. This is built for a lay person to be able to be convinced. The accessibility statement, the product certification, having that ACR with that accessibility company that's well known with a good name. Those are the ingredients that you would think they're going to put it by us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point. So marketing versus reality. We have to remember this, okay? So I have a problem with this. This is not the opinion of my sponsor, whoever that might be, but I'm just going to tell you that my opinion here is this is contributing to the confusion that educators have to wade through when they're trying to understand this stuff. This is not helping, this is hurting. And you'll see why I think that when we walk through the case study, okay? So we're going to hopefully pray that the video will play and that you will hear it. And this is going to be about headings. And Desiree, do you want me to just start playing because we're so behind, or?
It's fine. I just, before you play, headings are so important, and then, using them to navigate is the only way that a screen reader user orients themselves to a page. So, you can kind of get an idea of how a page is structured based on the headings, and it's the most widely used navigation way to navigate a page. So keep that in mind when you're watching, if we watch it.
If we watch it.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to try to unmute this.
So I've loaded this page and it's got some articles on it, I believe, and I'm going to just kind of see how they're structured. So typically what I do is move by either the arrow keys or my H key for headings. So I'm going to try the H key here.
Status updates heading level 2. Who is Pesto the Penguin and why does everyone love him? Heading level 3. Why did Veterans Day start? Heading level 3. Scientists say mindless scrolling through online videos makes boredom worse. Heading level 3.
So it's got each of these articles at a heading 3. So now I know if I want to search for an article, I can do it with a headings list.
Okay. All right, let me mute this again. Okay, and now I can talk. Can you hear me okay? All right.
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. Desiree, I think I went too far. What are you seeing up there? Now I can't get it to advance. 1 second. Okay, here we're going to do the next one. You want to go ahead and read what the next one's about?
You on the buttons?
I'm on the labels and buttons, button labels and heading location.
Okay, perfect. So, so the labels for the buttons are very important, and they must make sense in and out of context. And so if I have a list of buttons, and buttons typically do things, so I would want to be told kind of what is this button going to do when I press it, and that would all need to be in the label. And then, of course, we'll see the placement of the headings content and relating to the buttons too. That should also make sense.
Okay, so I'm going to move to the next slide, and we're going to pray that this will work. We are going to talk just briefly about meaningful sequence here. Do you want me to just quickly cover this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot that part.
Okay. So basically, meaningful sequence means that the order the content is in matters in order for the end user to understand the content. So if it's out of order and they can't understand it, then it doesn't meet meaningful sequence. If it kind of jumps around, or they can't stay oriented, or they're not following basic design conventions, then they can mess up meaningful sequence. And we'll see that in just a second. All right, so I'm going to play this video. She says, let me turn it.
I'm going to pull a button list because maybe I can do something with that.
Select a button dialog. List 1, list view. Toggle app switcher menu pop-up button 1 of 52. To move
All right, so there are 52 buttons here.
report toggle content as add to a site save content button 8 of content available in Spanish button 9 of 52.
Well, there's something available in Spanish, but all of these buttons don't have any context around them. So I don't know which articles these are tied to. So I've got an add to assigned. I do have a content is available in Spanish, but I'm not sure which article that is referring to.
Add to assignment button, save content button, content available in Spanish button
There's
12 of
another
50.
one. Same exact button label, but again, probably tied to a different article, but I'm not sure which one. So if I move to
Save, add to content
the
available
first
in
one here, and I
to activate presenter list with 1 items. Content available in Spanish button collapsed to activate presenter.
okay, it's a collapsed button. So perhaps if I press the button, it will actually turn this content into Spanish. So I'm going to press enter here.
Content available in Spanish dialog. Close button to activate presenter. Content available in Spanish. Content available close button. Content available in Spanish.
Okay, so all I get is a close button and just the message content available in Spanish, but it doesn't actually give me the content or even tell me which content I'm trying to view in Spanish. So I'm going to close that.
Close button. Main region. Scrollable content region. List with 8 items. List with 1 items. Content available in Spanish button collapsed to activate presenter. List and nesting left heading level 3. Why did Veterans Day start?
So I'm wondering if that content available in Spanish refers to this article or the one
List and
up here.
list of NAV 11. Inform membros link view. Why did Veterans Day start? Save content button. Add to a site link assign reading for maturity. A baby heading level 3. Who is Pesto the Penguin and why does everyone love him?
Oh, so the heading and link navigation is very confusing because it tells you kind of above all of the headings gives you some different options for those articles. So it's a little bit backwards. It's kind of confusing to decide, okay, if I go down from the heading, I don't have all of the options available to me that correspond to that article. I have to go above it too. So where the headings are placed is a little bit confusing.
Okay. So I'm going to explain this before I go on from this slide. So I don't know if you saw that these little ES buttons that are underneath the pictures on the articles, that means it's available in Spanish. Those are just icons that they decided to turn into a button because they didn't want to make a key or give you any other way of, or give it a label in another way to say this is available in Spanish, which gave her 52 buttons on one page. So buttons are not really supposed to be used to label graphics. That's not the purpose of a button. And then the headings, so each article has a heading level 3. This is the point where I think when TPGI did their testing, they probably did not test it with a native screen reader user. Because when I looked at this and I ran my test, I didn't notice that there was content above the heading that pertained to that heading. So Newsela was not following basic design principles here where it says a heading is like a section and everything associated with that heading should be underneath it. You shouldn't have things above it and things below it and things around it. You know, there's a design convention for it. But as a cited accessibility tester, right, I was like, well, yeah, they have headings. Okay, check. You know, looks visually like it's pretty well organized because visually I can see that there's everything organized on a card, right? So this is why native screen reader testing is so important because she's relying on that heading structure to orient her. She's relying on that heading structure to tell her this Spanish button is associated with that heading. And there's no programmatic way for her to determine that. So they do not actually meet meaningful sequence because of that. Okay, does that make sense? Go
One other thing I would say too is that when I pulled just the heading list, it looked fine. Like, okay, there's all these headings. It wasn't until I was arrowing through outside of that list, trying to read the content and get to where whatever the buttons were, that I realized, oh, they have some content here, which is before this heading for that article that's coming up.
So this is why it's really important to tell developers and vendors, good design is accessible design. It just flat out is. If you want everybody to be able to benefit more and to have better learning outcomes, make your stuff accessible because it's better design. Okay, next thing.
Now that's confusing button labels.
That's
Or
the one we're
that's
on.
what
You
we
want to give
just
the intro? Yeah.
Did. So basically, this is just going to show another example of the effects that confusing button labels can have on a screen reader user.
Here we go.
So let's see if I can view the article. Let's go pull a links list here.
Links list dial. Assign 6 of 54. View who is Pesto the Penguin and why does view why did Veterans Day start? View scientists say mindless scrolling through online videos makes boredom worse. 9 of 54.
Okay, so I'm going to view this article here.
To activate presenter. Newsella instructional content platform document. Scientists say mindless scrolling through online videos makes boredom worse. Scientists say heading level 2 assignment builder.
Okay, now how do I get the Spanish here? So I'm going to kind of navigate on this page here.
Assignment builder heading level 2. Instructions heading level 2. Activities heading level 3. Reading comprehension heading right prompt view button. Quiz checkbox checked. View button. Review student work button.
There's all kinds of buttons and fields here.
Select a form field dialog. List 1 list view. Review student work button. Formative button. Third review. View button. Quiz check. View button. Right prompt. View button. 24.
A lot of view buttons. It doesn't tell me what I'm viewing. So I'm not sure how that works. It's all, I'm assuming, working with this article.
Toggle app switcher menu pop-up button. Search for text and more content library button. Reports button. Toggle user pro. Toggle support center. English current language button. 7 of 74. 1050L reading level. Select a change. English current language button. 7 of
So
7.
if I go to the English button.
To
here,
activate presenter. English current language button collapsed. To activate presenter. English current language button collapsed.
I'm going to try to press this button.
Expanded. English button expanded. Spanish button.
Okay, so I did find the Spanish button, but I had to actually press the English button to do that.
Who knows which one will translate?
Yeah. Yeah. We still haven't solved that mystery. So, okay. So let me mute that again and go to the next slide. All right. So this is, did it go? What are you seeing? Okay. This is the last video. You do the intro of this one,
Yep.
Des?
So in this last one, we're going to discuss the importance of indicating the language used on a page. So we'll see what happens when it works and when it doesn't.
List with 2 items. Spanish button to activate presenter. Científicos afirman que pasar de video en video continuamente en internet empeora el aburrimiento. Científicos afirman que pasar de video.
So it did create Spanish here. However, there aren't tags in it, so my screen reader isn't actually effectively translating that into Spanish. Typically what happens is it'll actually switch voices and speak with a Spanish accent, but in this case, it's Americanizing the Spanish. The translation is there in text, but it's not tagged correctly, so the screen reader doesn't realize, oh, this is actually Spanish and I need to translate it and change my accent.
Heading level 2 status updates. Científicos of Scientific heading navigation list of 4 toggle app switch visited search for texts and more. Científicos afirman que pasar de video en
There's
video
some-
continuamente en internet empeora el aburrimiento. Heading
So
level
that time it did when I got down to this heading, but the top part was not translating. So that sound that you heard with the different voice is what's supposed to happen anytime there's another language content.
Heading level 1.
Um,
Científicos afirman que pasar de video en video continuamente en Internet empeora el aburrimiento.
So that is kind of what it would do, and it's supposed to do that. And it is reading it here in the Spanish accent that JAWS has. It's a similar voice, but it's actually better than like up here.
Científicos afirman que pasar de video en video continuamente en Internet empeora el aburrimiento.
That's what happens when you don't have a tag.
Americanized Spanish.
We have a question in the back of the room here.
Is there a generative level to it? Like, when you're designing it, does it know, like, does it pick up the Spanish text and say, hey, we should put an accent on this? Or is this something
List.
that the developer is going to manually tag each time?
It's gonna be manually tagged. It's okay. The question was, is the screen reader just gonna automatically tag it for you, or is the developer gonna need to tag it? So now we have pointy brackets up on the screen to sort of explain that for you. So Desiree, you ready to walk through this one?
Yeah. So you're showing the code now?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So on this screen, we basically typed in some code to show you exactly how the language attributes are supposed to work. So at the top of the code, on the HTML element, you can see the lang tag, the lang equals en, and that's why the page title is technically English. So en is the English tag. Once you've set that language tag attribute, then the screen reader will expect to speak it, that any text that follows it in that language. So that's why it tried to make it English. So unfortunately, the title of this page is written in Spanish, and so it tried to pronounce it in Americanized Spanish. So this is why you heard the weird, kind of American voice that JAWS did. But later, when I got down to the heading level 1, the language tag, the language attribute then is now set to Spanish on the heading element. So then JAWS knows, okay, now I'm going to pronounce that text under that heading in Spanish, and it changes the accent and the voice that's used.
Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. That's how that works, or supposed to work. All right. So we're on your screen reader slide now.
So,
Yeah,
this is
the blank that says put the new URL in there.
This is, well, it'll be in our resource thing.
It's in our resource folder.
Yes. So basically, we just kind of created a basics with screen readers as far as testing. And again, you can pull a headings list, and you can use links list and all those things and get a kind of a visual idea of what you're going to hear with a screen reader. But as we saw, that alone doesn't fully pass. So it gives you a good start to say, okay, I've got my structure, it's decent. But at the end of the day, you'll still want to run it through or have it, studied by someone or tested by someone who's an end user. But basically, we've given you kind of basic shortcut keys, navigating by headings with JAWS and NVDA. You can use H and Shift H if you're just moving, if you want to pull a list. In JAWS, you do Insert F6. And in NVDA, you would actually do Insert F7 and then pick headings or whatever from the tree view. So in some ways, NVDA is a little easier to test with because you only have to remember that keystroke. But there are some elements that aren't available to see, like graphics and things like that with NVDA that you can do with JAWS.
Okay. So the summary slide, basically, you have to understand that the documentation that you're going to get from the vendors is marketing. And you have to take the extra steps to find out what's really working, but then hold a boundary that you're not going to do their work for them. You're not going to be the accessibility police. You're not going to do all their testing for them. You're going to do some spot checking. You're going to expect for them to demonstrate that they are doing this testing, right? And that's what you have to do with the VIGS process. And it will be painful. There will be resistance. They will not want to change because these laws have been around and on the books for a very long time. And there's not been any real accountability, right? So there now people can get sued under the ADA. So the stakes are a lot higher now. And the, educational institutions are going to really need to start focusing on how do they get their vendors to collaborate with them and work with them to make things better. What we have to do now is make a decision, everybody. So we were going to have some hands-on testing. We were going to install 3 tools today if you have your computers, and we were going to do some hands-on testing. Not entirely sure that we're going to have the time to get through everything if we do that, but we could just cut out some of the other content toward the end. So what we had prepared for you was, we have some more videos. We were going to go over manual testing, like how you can do things without any tools at all. And then we were going to just show you a little bit about the automated tool stuff, right? And give you some time to work with some things. So there's some ed tech products in your notes document that we were going to let you choose from. I was going to just recommend that everybody just go to the IXL website because they have lots of content to choose from there. It's free, it's fast, it's easy. So we can do that, or we can just kind of keep showing you things, which I hate to do because we wanted to give you hands-on time, but I want to respect your decision since you came all the way here and this is your training. So what would you like to do? Any thoughts in the chat? Just showing things? Okay. All right. So we are going to take a break because I need to go take, okay, continue, this chat says. All right. So we'll just keep sort of forging through and doing demos and stuff for you guys here. And I'm going to go take a shot of vodka. No, I'm not.
You better
I'm
send
gonna-
some.
All right, we'll all share. Yeah. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for being so patient, and we'll get through this. This is an adventure. I'm gonna go ahead and start. Is that okay with y'all? Okay. Okay, we are back. For those of you that are online, we are coming back. So we're going to talk about manual accessibility testing. And you're going to get to hear the lovely and talented Shira Goldberg on our video during this section. But this is a section that if you guys could pull up one of like something on IXL, if you go to IXL.com or Google IXL.com on your computer, I can stop this video and let you kind of try the things that she's trying. I know we did not install the tools, and I'll kind of show you some stuff when I feel brave enough to stop sharing the PowerPoint. But I can stop the video and then you guys can try it at least on IXL. So if you just go to IXL's webpage, you scroll down on the page, there are several different subjects. You can kind of choose a subject, go find an activity, and just get on the activity, and then we'll just try these things. These are just manual tests that you can do without any special tools. So when you're looking at a website or an ed tech product, you can do these things yourself. Okay, so do we have our people back online, I guess, hopefully? Okay. So these are some of the things that you can test for without tools. So we already talked about the page title. We're going to actually, Shira's going to demo that. But when you see a video, you can check to see whether or not the video has captions. Are the captions actually quality captions? Are they just made up captions that make no sense? So again, remember that, like Shira said, you're protecting the students. That's your role, right? Is to look at the quality of this stuff. Other things that are important for everybody, not just kids, is consistency in the layout. So you can look for things like consistency. You can see whether or not you can navigate with a keyboard. there's a thing called skip links on here that will be covered in the video. And what that basically means is that you are able to bypass repeated navigation. And so you can skip over navigation if you are, just think about in your head, a person using a mouth stick has severe motor impairments, and the only way they can access a computer is with a mouse stick. This is the example that I use because it is physically very draining for a person to do that. So they need to be able to skip the links. And we're going to talk a little bit about how important it is to think about everybody when you're doing that, and not just people who have expensive assistive technology that helps them do this, right? So we'll talk about that in a second because Jennifer wants to say something really important.
So as we get into manual testing, I just want to remind everybody that our automated testing that we use really catches only about 30% of those errors. So there's no way around manual testing. You have to manual test. So this is critical.
Told you I was going to forget that. Thank you. All right, so I want to pause here for just a second and talk about skip links, then I promise I'll go to the next slide. So screen reading technology has the ability to navigate by heading. So a totally blind person actually has an advantage over someone who's sighted who has a motor impairment, because that person who's sighted can't navigate by headings. They can't navigate by regions of the page because they don't have assistive technology to help them with that. That's why skip links are so important, and implementing them effectively and properly is so important. And in the video that Shira did, you're going to see how it has not been implemented properly. And so every time you see her have to press the tab key in this video, I want you to remember the person with a mouth stick who's quadriplegic and has to move their entire body every time to hit a key. This is the person that we need to think about when we think about skip links, okay? So I'm going to go to the next one. This is an example of using color alone. This was on, see, I was going to not say that, but you said it out loud. Okay. All right. Well, this is actually a speaker registration form for an assistive technology conference that will go unnamed. And it uses color alone. It says, the red fields, the red text is required, that you have to enter those things in. And the red shades don't even match. So for someone who doesn't have any color perception, this is what this is going to look like to them. So this is a tool that I'm using called SIM Daltonism, SIMDALTONISM, if I spelled that correctly. It's only available on a Mac. There are other ways to test for this kind of stuff on a PC. And hopefully I'll get to demo that for you, but this is really powerful to be able to use something like this to show your developer, look, this is why this is not going to work. And you can choose different kinds of color blindness. SIM, S-I-M, Daltonism, D-A-L-T-O-N-I-S-M. It's in your folder, there's a whole document of all kinds of free testing tools. And it's one of them. And in that document, it will give you a link to where you go get it. It will give you a video of showing you how to use it, right? And a brief explanation of what it does. All right, so it's just a Word doc with all these different tools, and it's in the resources folder, okay? And I'm adding some additional ones to it, but everything that's in there is free. So you can use any of it. You don't have to pay for anything. All right, so I wanted to point out that Tetralogical, it's a UK-based company. They have wonderful resources. They're also in the references sheet, so you don't really have to write all this down, but they have these quick accessibility test videos that are like a minute long. And they're really helpful to show to like your instructional technology people saying, you could do this. Here's a little 1-minute video showing you how to test with the keyboard, or here's a 1-minute video showing you how to, check to see if you have a page title, okay? So they have these, and they're really, really well done. They use their own website as an example, and it's, of course, coded properly. Okay, now this is the notes document. This is where I was going to have you go in and pick a product. We're not doing that, but there are some free-ish products in your notes document. If you want to practice some of these testing tools, you can use these free-ish products to try to practice with some of the testing tools, okay? All right, so we're going to go to our video of Shira talking a little bit about manual testing. And this is where I'm going to start the video, and then I'm going to try to pause it and give you guys a second to try it on your IXL page that you might be on your computers, okay? If you don't have a computer, if you have somebody you can look over their shoulder or something, you know, it might be kind of good for you to see this. So here we go. I'm going to start the video. I think we're muted, right? We are not muted.
We are on IXL and we're going to test this web page for some simple accessibility indicators to see if we can just use our keyboard and our mouse and look at accessibility barriers that might be happening. We are going to look at page title. We're going to look at skip to content link, reflow, and the visible focus indicator that I will explain as we go. So the first thing we're going to do is take the mouse and hover over the tab for this web page to check the page title. It's as simple as that. All we need to do is check for best practice, which says the title of the page should be listed first and then the company name, so that screen reader that might be speaking wouldn't have to say extraneous words. So right off the bat, I can see that IXL is first, and then read a topographical map, which is the title of the page, and those should be switched around.
Okay, so that's how you can check it if you have a mouse, right? And you can use the mouse. There are some other tools that will also check your page title. So remember the tools I told you about from the Web Accessibility Initiative, they have these easy check tools. Those are some of the ones that we were going to do on our hands-on time. I will try to show that to you so that you can see how to use those tools, and they're easy, they're properly named, and they're some of my favorite ones because they give you a nice little screenshot to show to people as well. Okay, so that's the page title. So that's a pretty easy one to check.
Control L is what I'm going to hit next to get to URL bar, and then I'm going to hit tab, and we're looking for the skip to content link. That will take us to the main content of the page, hopefully, which is the questions and answers in the middle of the page. It shouldn't take us to any other extraneous menus that are happening on this page. So let's see what happens. I'm going to hit tab and tab again, and I've gotten to skip to content. It appeared at the top left of the screen. I'm going to hit enter and see if I can get to the actual question and answer here. So enter has been activated. I've lost the visible focus indicator, so I'm just going to hit tab again to try to find it. I can see there's a light gray dotted line I'm pointing to with my mouse around the word fourth grade. It is either the visible focus indicator of the browser that is there by default or what is built into IXL. I don't know. It definitely is not the highest contrast visible focus indicator. It's a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to stop it here for a second and point something out. So when you're hitting tab, it's going to the actionable items on the page, right? So the actionable items on this page are these buttons down here, or what looks like buttons down here, these answer choices, right? So when she hit skip to main content and hit tab again, it should have gone to the very first actionable element after the main content. It did not do that. It took her back up to the menu. So I just kind of want to explain what was happening there, okay?
Difficult to see. I also notice that it is the top menu rather than the main content. So it's taking me to the pathway from fourth grade to the question title. And then now the visible focus indicator when I've hit tab is a black line around some social media buttons that are at the top right. So I definitely don't need to worry about social media right now. And I'm going to keep hitting tab. The visible focus indicator is still a black line. So that's easy to see. But again, I'm not on the main content still. So I'm going to hit tab again to get to that answer choice, and I've finally gotten to the main content of the page, which is the answer choice. So the visible focus indicator became a light blue shading on the answer choice with a light blue line around it. Again, not the best contrast to know exactly where I am on this page. Visible focus indicator wise, I would say that could definitely be a barrier. So I'm going to read the question and then the answer choices, and we're going to try to answer the question using just the keyboard. The question is, use the image to complete the sentence. The tops of the mountains are at blank the valley below. The answer choices are a lower elevation than, a higher elevation than, or the same elevation as. And so let's just try to answer with this first choice here. And these choices, to me, the way that they look like buttons. So as a keyboard user, I think if I hit enter here, it'll fill in the answer and I'll be able to answer the question just using my keyboard and the enter key. So I'm going to hit enter on a lower elevation than. And what happened? Incomplete answer. It says you did not finish the question. Do you want to go back to the question? There's a focus indicator of a black line around the go back button. So I'm going to tab through, and it looks like obviously enter did not do what I thought it was going to do. Logically, cognitively, that might be confusing for somebody who's trying to use their keyboard to answer this question. So I'm hitting tab and tab again to X out of this pop-up, and I'm going to hit enter and go back. So let's see, when I choose a lower elevation than as my answer, I just know as a keyboard user that the spacebar might be a better choice or might work in this instance. So let's see if that works in this case. And I'm gonna hit spacebar, and that is what worked. So my first try was enter, my second try spacebar. That might be a challenge or a barrier for somebody who's trying to use this with the keyboard.
Okay, so I want to talk for a second about this. Those are radio buttons. We looked at the code. Do they look like radio buttons to you? Okay, that's how they're coded. And that's why the space bar worked. But really, you know, in the keyboard shortcut area of your notes document, I kind of put in some typical, like how people typically navigate. Buttons are, you can use button or space. So typically when they're for toggling things, like you might choose this radio button and go, oh, I don't want that, I want this other radio button. So it's kind of like toggling it. You would use a space bar. But if you're wanting to execute an action, like I want to submit this form, you can press enter. Or you could do both depending on how the developer coded it. So our point is you need to try both ways on buttons. When you're doing your testing, try it with the enter key, try it with the space bar, see what happens, because most people are not that aware of how buttons are supposed to work, right? They know, wow, when I press enter key when I'm trying to submit something, it works. They don't know those nuances. Only developers tend to know that. So try both ways.
Or with a cognitive disability. I'm going to hit tab. The submit button is now selected with my tab key, and it is a black line around the submit button. And what I'm going to check lastly is reflow. So reflow should be zooming in with Control plus to 400%, and I should not lose any of the content on this page. So what I can see right now is the question, the answer, and on the side there is a menu on the right that says questions answered with a number, time elapsed, challenge stage, and teacher tools, as well as an edit pencil that I think is for highlighting and doing things to the text on the page. So I'm going to hit Control plus. So I've hit it once, twice, 3 times to 150. Just going to continue to hit Control plus, 250, 300, and now I have gotten to 400. So I can see that the top menu is partially there. The question and the picture are there, and I'm scrolling down and looking at the question. Here are the answer choices. They seem to have disappeared with the text, and I can see the edit button is here with that highlighting text and things I could do to the text on the page. However, that right menu with the time elapsed and teacher tools, that has disappeared. So I know that that is another accessibility barrier that has happened. Reflow would not be correct on this page, and we have finished our manual testing.
Okay, so reflow is something that was added in WCAG 2.1. Before that, we just had text enlargement to 200%. So you might get some confusion around, well, what's the difference between those two things? Well, text enlargement is really just about enlarging the text and providing ways for people to enlarge it up to twice what it would otherwise be, right? And then reflow brings in this whole concept of how confusing it can be for someone who needs more extreme levels of magnification to have to scroll horizontally back and forth. So there's a bunch of studies done. The W3C decided that they would institute this reflow thing up to 400%, and you're not supposed to lose any content, and you're not supposed to have horizontal scrolling activated. So you don't have two-dimensional scrolling. Any questions about that? Okay.
We are not.
Yep, no, we're not. We're moving on. Okay. So this is basically the color contrast analyzer that to help you with testing. This is one of the tools that we were going to practice today, but we do have a video here to show you this. So when you're doing color testing, remember the manual thing that you can look for is, are they using color alone to indicate meaning? So think about the form that we saw, right? The next thing that you're going to do with these testing tools is you're going to look at the contrast between the background and the foreground. So there's the contrast for text. So there's a success criteria that's specifically about, minimum contrast for the text against its background. And then in WCAG 2.1, they also added the contrast for like your visible focus indicators. So being able to tell sort of where you are, understanding what the contrast is supposed to be is also now a requirement. So you test all of those with tools like the color contrast analyzer. This is actually an application, so you download it. There's a Windows version and a Mac version, and this is by the Paciello Group. Again, one of my favorite accessibility companies. They're awesome, and they have this really helpful tool. So this is what this one's about. Hi everyone, we're going to do some color contrast testing using the Color Contrast Analyzer tool by TPGI. The site that we're going to use for testing is IXL, and we're going to look at their mission page. At the top of the page, there is a heading with some large text on kind of a yellowish orange background. So we're going to test the contrast between that text and its background. The first thing we'll do is we'll select the eyedropper tool in the foreground area, and then we'll take the eyedropper and we'll select the white text. It will then populate the foreground color with the hex number for white. Then we'll go to the background color area within the color analyzer tool. We'll select the eyedropper there, and then we'll go over and select the background color that is behind that white text, and it populates it with the hex number for that color. As you'll see here, it calculates the contrast ratio for us and shows it at the bottom of the tool. It tells us that the contrast ratio here is 1.7 to 1. For regular text, the minimum required ratio is 4.5 to 1. For large text, which is what this is, the minimum ratio is 3 to 1. The tool shows us here that it fails for both regular text and large text. Let's take a look at what it looks like when the contrast passes. We're going to again select our foreground eyedropper, and we're going to come over to this dark gray text, which is just regular size text on the page under this heading called Customer Focused. And we are going to select that text, and then we're going to take the eyedropper for our background, and we're going to select the white background behind the text. You'll notice that the foreground color here is a much darker color, and so the contrast ratio is much higher, and it passes for both regular text and large text. So the contrast ratio here is 16.3 to 1, well above the minimum contrast ratios for both regular text and large text. And that's how you use the color contrast analyzer. Happy color testing. Okay. All right, so any questions about the color contrast analyzer? I'm sorry we don't get to play with it and practice, and it's a fun tool. but that's kind of how you use it. All right. Hi, everyone. Let me see if I can get back. Okay, so what is this? This is you. Okay, never mind. This is, I didn't see this one. Sorry, this is Jennifer. Jennifer, do you want me to just play this? You have anything to say about it? Okay. I'll set the stage. Okay, so this is using your DevTools in Chrome to check for color blindness settings. So a lot of people don't even know that this is there, but it's totally free and it's in Chrome. And so Jennifer's demoing that, and I haven't seen this, so I'll be learning too.
Today, we're going to learn how to assess the colorblind accessibility of a web page using browser DevTools. And we're going to use the DevTools to utilize the Emulate Vision Deficiency features, which allows us to simulate different color vision deficiencies like protanopia, which is reduced sensitivity to red light, or deuteranopia, which is reduced sensitivity to green light, to see how your design might appear to individuals with these conditions. So let's go ahead and get started by opening DevTools by right-clicking on the web page and selecting Inspect. Once we select Inspect, we then want to navigate to the rendering panel. And in order to do that, we're going to go up to our 3 ellipses in our DevTools page to the right of our original design. And then we are going to select More Tools. And so once we select More Tools, let's go down to Rendering, because that's where we're going to find our emulator. Once we select Rendering, we see the bottom half of our page has changed. It shows us that it's rendering. And so now we want to scroll down to the Emulate Vision Deficiencies drop-down list. So we have to scroll until we see Emulate Vision Deficiencies, and that is right here. So this is what forces vision deficiency emulation. So let's start seeing what our web page might look like to others. So this is with no emulation. This is how it looked when we began. The blurred vision emulation shows us how difficult it would be for an individual with blurred vision to see that page. Our reduced contrast also shows us what someone who has that concern would be seeing on this web page. And this is also a reason why we want to make sure that our color contrast is accessible. And so now let's look at protanopia, which means that they are unable to see red. Let's look at our deuteranopia, which means the individual cannot see green. Let's look at our tritanopia, which means that the individual can't see blue. And then our achromatopsia, which means that they can't see any colors, no colors. And that's what it would look like. So when you're emulating these vision deficiencies, you want to observe how the web page looks with the selected color blindness simulation enabled. Are color distinctions still clear? Is the content still readable and understandable? And so you're going to try the different simulation options to assess the page's accessibility for various color vision deficiencies. So by using this feature, you can identify potential accessibility issues related to color blindness and make necessary adjustments to your design. This has been DevTools.
Okay, so the vision simulator on DevTools. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, no questions online. You guys have to help me watch the chat. Okay. All righty. So this is where we were going to get into practicing with the semi-automated testing. So I am going to go ahead and demo the Web Accessibility Initiative and then pray that we get back into the PowerPoint. So I'm just going to escape here and go to my browser and put this window over here. I have a couple of things pulled up over here. So we were going to look at the Savvis website. We were going to talk about, when we were talking about accessibility statements, we were going to try to show you guys typically where they are located, right? So we were going to go down, forgive my scrolling, I'm scrolling all the way to the bottom because typically that's where you're going to find the links to accessibility statements if they exist on a page, right? So there is an accessibility statement here on Savvis. We're going to check that here. Remember, I told you that these check marks don't pass minimum color contrast. I'm not going to waste our time showing you that. That's with the color contrast analyzer that we saw earlier. So we're going to go here and we're going to learn more about accessibility at Savvis. And we're just going to test this page because this is what I like to do when a company tells me that they're really committed to accessibility. I just go to their website first and start looking to see what's going on there. So one of the things that, remember the meaningful sequence? Remember you want to look at content in a specific order to understand what's on the page, right? And you want to read top to bottom, left to right. So when you're tabbing through a website, you want it to go sequentially through that website. That's the ideal situation. So one of the tools that I like to use is the Accessibility Insights tool from Microsoft. And again, this is on your tools list and there are instructions for how to install it. But you start out by putting your focus in the URL bars. You can use your mouse or you can do Command L or Control L if you're just doing keyboard only, and that will get you to the URL bar. And then you come into your extensions and you're going to come down and find your Accessibility Insights extension. And in my case, this is the mode that I typically use. When you first start out using it, it'll look like this. It will give you a fast pass, a quick access, assessment, ad hoc tools. This is what it will look like the very first time that you use it. I like hanging out in the ad hoc tools because I can do one thing at a time, okay? And one of my favorite things about this tool is the tab stops. So I'm going to turn on tab stops. And what it's going to do is it's going to track where this thing is going. So I'm going to hit tab and then tab again. Okay, so what you see down here, this is my first tab stop down here. I'm going to hit tab again, tab again, tab again, tab again, tab again, tab again, tab again. And now I'm kind of going zigzagging around this page all over the place. I'm totally lost if I'm a blind user. I saw no skip link. Okay, now I finally get down to these little buttons down here, right? So this is not ideal. This is not ideal, okay? So that's what this tool is good for. You can take a really quick screenshot of that and, send that to the vendor and say, Houston, we have a problem. So anyway, so then you just kind of refresh to make that go away. The other thing that I like, there's a couple of things in the Accessibility Insights tool that I also like to do. You can do the color. This one only turns things to grayscale. So if I turn color on, this is what the site would look like in the grayscale. You can't do any, color contrast testing or anything like that with this one, but you can see what it would look like if you had no color perception. It will show you where your headings are. You turn on headings and it highlights them and shows you where they're at. So this tells me that this is a heading level 1 here, and that seems to be the only heading that I have. Oh, there's one down there. So we have this mysterious heading level 3 down here and another mysterious heading level 4 that has no text. So don't know what that's about. So anyway, you refresh this. The other set of tools were the easy checks. So you need to think about having lots of tools in your tool belt. Okay, so sometimes the tools don't necessarily return what you want, and so you go to another tool, right? So I thought that heading list was kind of weird. So I'm going to go over here and use my easy checks. So the easy checks, there's installation instructions in the reference document in the folder, but I'm going to come down here and I'm going to check headings on this page, and it shows me that I have looks like I have a hidden heading level 1 up here. So, and then I have this heading level 3, select an option below. So that's what that mysterious heading level 3 thing was down there that had no text. And then I have this 4, which is more options. I don't know what that's for. And then my heading level 1 is here. So the problem with this is that, remember how Desiree was talking about how headings orient a blind user to a page? So what they typically, this is not a violation of WCAG, by the way. So this heading order is not a WCAG violation. All they say is you just have to have headings, right? And that the heading text needs to be meaningful. But it's very much a usability issue. And so it's not a problem for you as an educational institution to say, this isn't okay, this is confusing for our blind users to have this kind of heading navigation, because every page should have one heading level 1, and then the next heading underneath that should be 2, and then 3, and so on, and it should just move down the page in that order, okay? Trying to think of our time here. So I also want to point out, let me just go ahead and close this. So the thing I like about these is these easy checks is you just close the box. You don't have to refresh your page. So that's kind of nice. The other thing that they do is they have an alternative text description. So text, check your images. So they're going to show me where my images are with these yellow boxes. So they say, this is an image here. It has an alt text of 2024 accessibility header, 975 by 746. That's not too helpful to a user. Oh, .png, that's even more like, that's really helpful. Okay. What is this image? It's not telling me. It's just, anyway, so that's not meaningful alternative text. So what it does, I need to scroll hopefully this way a little bit, is it asks you to make a decision, because remember, the tools can find certain things in the code. They only find about 30% of the problems, but there's a lot of human decision-making that has to go into this. And depending on who's doing the testing, you know, they may make a decision that doesn't agree with the decision that you make, right? But this is not suitable alternative text, right? So you would tell the vendor, this is not okay. This doesn't make any sense. Okay. Let's see what else I want to point out. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to close my alternative text. Let's see if they have any maybe meaningful. This is pretty good. This is alternative text says a student in a wheelchair sits at a table completing an assignment with their classmates. Yeah, okay, that's pretty good. All right, we can accept that one. So it'll tell you that, and then you have to make a decision. So I'm going to close the alternative text box here. I'm going to come up here to easy checks. The other thing, I don't think we have any form fields on here. Okay, so the other thing that you can do that I like of the easy checks is find what's focusable. So you can find out, check your keyboard focus. So you check that, and then it will put boxes around everything that's keyboard focusable. So it says this, and this is keyboard focusable. No boxes around this. No boxes around this. So we know that we were able to get down to those things, so they really were keyboard focusable, but this is the problem with the tools, is that they're not 100% accurate all the time, and they're free, so you get what you pay for. So you just kind of have to understand what to look for. Sometimes it's very helpful, and they'll put boxes around everything for you, and it's you can see all the different keyboard focusable things. Okay, so I'm going to move on because we only have 30 minutes. I'm going to pray that we can get back into the PowerPoint. Let me move this out of the way. I'm sorry about the quick and dirty accessibility testing and that you didn't get any hands-on, and I feel terrible about that. But we have a few other things that we want to share with you. Okay, so we're going to move through this. The other thing I just wanted to mention was ChatGPT. Okay. I use ChatGPT a lot. It's helpful with some things, but you can't believe everything it says. I think it has male answer syndrome, like my husband, who just sounds very authoritative when he's telling me something that doesn't make any sense. And so that's what I think happens with chat sometimes. And so you really have to verify, again, what you're getting out of chat. But if you have a paid version, like I pay $20 a month or whatever, you can actually take a snippet of code, throw it into chat and say, tell me what's wrong with this code. And it does a pretty decent job of pointing some things out. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that that's a tool in your toolkit, Because you may not remember what the WCAG success criteria is, but you know there's a problem, right? So you can go on to chat and say, is it a violation of WCAG for them to not have a box around the buttons when I'm navigating by the tab key, or use whatever language you want to use to chat? And it will say, yes, it is. And then it will give you the success criteria. And so then you can go back into WCAG and find that. So it's really helpful for that kind of quick question that you might need to ask it. This is just a screenshot of the automated testing tools document that I was telling you about that's available in your folder. And it has, I don't remember how many tools, lots of tools are in there, and I'll continue to add some additional ones that I wanted to do. So I wanted to make sure we got a chance to talk about overlays. So we have some videos to show you in here too of Desiree and some experiences that she's had with overlays. Desiree, I'm just going to try to run through these intro slides as fast as I can. But basically, there are claims that some of these companies will make that say that they can fix all of your accessibility problems with one line of code. That is false, okay? What they do is they block accessibility testing tools. They use JavaScript to keep you from looking at dev tools. They do things like that. And and they interfere with assistive technology. So that is a false claim, and we're going to talk about somebody who got in trouble for making that claim in just a minute. So how do you recognize if a site is using an overlay? They are going to use some kind of an icon like this. So this is the universal access icon, this one where the person is standing with their arms out and their legs kind of apart. That's the icon for universal access. So when you see an icon like that at the bottom right, or maybe the bottom left of the screen, because they can't even be consistent about that, then that means that they are using probably some kind of an overlay. This icon with the person in a wheelchair that looks like they're on a laptop computer, that's the icon for Accessibility. Okay, and there are other overlays. There's so many overlay companies, lots of overlay companies. Other overlay companies will use like wheelchair icons or whatever, but typically they'll have some sort of icon that's overlaid on the top of your screen that then activates a window like this. And it gives you like accessibility modes or personalization settings that you can have, okay? And so we're going to talk about the benefits or lack thereof of that. So there's a bunch of documentation in our references document about overlays. One of them is this article, The Skinny on Accessibility Overlays. I'm going to read this quote. Many individuals who use assistive technology find that overlays require atypical use of their technology or stop their technology from working. For example, masking or hiding content, which removes important context for understanding. And we will actually see an example of that in a minute. So these are some terms I wanted to cover with you from a company called AudioEye in a blog post by Mike Paciello, who is the Chief Technology Officer at AudioEye. And he defines an overlay as JavaScript that sits on top of a website's code and provides additional information. So it gives an example like web analytics tools. Those are overlay tools. They're gathering your input. When you click the button, oh, they like chocolate. Okay, well, I'll send them some ads on chocolate, okay? Those are all over the place, and we interact with them all the time. But in the accessibility industry, when an overlay comes in and tries to take over your computer and prohibit your assistive technology from working, then it becomes harmful, right? So, and that's the problem that people in the accessibility industry have, is that these overlay widgets, which Mike defines as a toolbar that's meant to quote unquote fix accessibility issues, but it should not be a substitute for assistive technology. And it may provide some personalization for milder situational disabilities. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not a fan of overlays. I'm not afraid to say that, right? But I'm not a fan because the technology is not there yet, right? I don't think we should stop trying to figure this out, because it would be really nice if we could figure out how this stuff could work. My problem again is marketing versus reality, right? It's what the companies say and how misleading it is, and especially, like Shira pointed out earlier, to a person who doesn't know this stuff, that's not entrenched in it every day. A layperson who sees these things thinks, oh, well, it must be good, right? Because look at all these wonderful things that they say. And so it's the same issue with overlays, and we'll get an example of some of that as we march through these slides. So we're going to look at Accessibility 1 of 2 here. This is a video. Desiree, I just think this, we don't have a name on this, so I'm just going to say it's an exemplar. It's an example of Accessibility in action and how it affects a blind user. Not working, is it? Because I left. Am I?
An option. And normally you would see an icon at the bottom of your screen at the bottom left corner, and it would be the Accessibility icon, and it's a wheelchair symbol. And right now the icon is empty. So there is no check mark in the icon showing that Accessibility for right now is not activated. So I'm in the normal mode where I could just browse the page without any accessibility options selected. So what I'm going to do is just down arrow through the web page for a minute and just kind of get an idea of what's here.
Please visit these standalone sites for more information. Link GE Aerospace open vertical bar. Link GE Vernova opens in the new browser tab.
Okay, I'm going to press H for heading.
FAQ heading level 5.
And that's where I want to be. So now I'm going to down arrow.
Heading level 1 frequently asked questions and answers. Same page link updates. Same page link investors. Main region end. General Electric graphic. Heading level 2 general. What does GE stand for?
Okay, so I'm under the general heading now, and I'm just down arrowing through the content. And just to get a good idea of the structure of the page, I'm going to pull a headings list.
Escape.
So I'm going to press Insert F6.
Heading list dialog. Headings list view. GE.com has been updated to serve our 3 go-forward companies. 1 of 33.
So I have 33 headings here, and I'm going to try to find the beginning of the FAQ here.
FAQ frequently asked questions and answers 1, 3, general 2, 4 of 33, answer 6, 5 of 33, answer 6, 6 of 33, answer 6, 7.
Okay, so these all just have answer, and I don't actually know what the question is that it's asking, that those are the answers to. So if I move to one of those, I press enter.
Enter. Heading level 6 answer.
And now I'm on the answer, but if I want to know what the question is, I have to go above this.
What is GE Aerospace? Heading level 6 answer.
So that's how the headings are working. Let's see if there's any buttons on this page or a form field. So I'm going to press Insert F5 now.
Select a form field dialog. List 1 list view. Use website in a screen reader mode button. 1 of 2 to move to.
So there are just 2 buttons, and they're working with the Accessibility overlay. And it again is not active in this case. So now it tells me at the very top here.
Use website in a screen reader mode toggle button not pressed.
I can press that button if I want to activate screen reader mode. And when I do that, then I know that I've activated it. It reloads and everything. However, what I have found is that if I do any kind of tabbing around the web page, we'll see what happens. So I'm going to go to the top again, Control Home. Now I'm going to tab a few times.
GE spin-off FAQs. Skip to menu, same page. Skip to footer. Open Accessibility. Main region.
Okay, now I'm going to pull the same list because I've just tabbed a couple of times. And let's say I want to go back to my FAQ heading. So I'm going to do an Insert F6 again.
Heading list dialog. Headings list view. GE.com has been updated to serve our 3 go-forward companies. 1 of 6.
6. I had 33 headings before, and now I'm down to 6. So
FAQ general 2, 3 of 6, investors 2, 4 of customers and former employees.
I don't have any of those answer headings anymore. Those are gone. Not quite sure what happened there. So let me move down to this general heading.
General heading level 2. What does GE stand for? Button. How can I learn more about the standalone public companies going forward? Button.
So now I have buttons here that I didn't have before. And as you'll notice, down in that corner where the icon is, there is now a check mark in the Accessibility icon. So it activated Accessibility for me just because I pressed the tab key. This violates WCAG Success Criterion 3.2.1. That is the on-focus success criterion that says that tabbing alone should not activate a new mode. So I was not given the choice to specify that I wanted it to change to screen reader mode. It automatically did that.
It changed the whole structure of the page on her. Took away those headings and turned them into buttons is what happened. So let me move to the next slide.
So I'm on the
Okay, this is Desiree. Okay, this is me. Okay, is this me? I don't know. Or is this you? Page structure. I'm just gonna go through this one. So, so as you can see, the GE site by itself is not accessible, right? Needs better design to improve the accessibility. The heading structure needs some work, but Accessibee's solution was not helpful. First of all, as Desiree navigated the page, the way she would normally navigate it, she learned that there were headings and that she understood, kind of started to understand and get used to that structure. And then she starts tabbing, and then suddenly this mode appears, and now everything that she learned in her investigation of that just was gone, right? And now she's having to reorient herself to the page because Accessibee is trying to be her assistive technology, is trying to decide that, oh, we're going to fix this problem for you. But they actually didn't fix the problem. So Desiree, I think that was your slide. But anyway, okay, so now this is the next one. You want to talk about what's going to be in this video? This is just, I don't know, Desiree, can you hear me? I think we may have lost Desiree. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to look at Accessibee's solution to the heading structure in GE site. I'm going to start this.
All right, so one more thing I want to show you while Accessibee is turned on. I'm going to press one of these buttons and see an answer to my question.
What
So
does GE? How can I learn? Enter. Toggle button pressed. How can I learn more about the standalone public companies going forward? Answer heading level 4.
Oh, I pressed that one. So
Visit. Heading. What does
I actually wanted the one above it, so I'm going to go up.
Heading level 3 general. What does GE stand for? Toggle button not pressed.
I'm going to press this one.
Enter. What does GE stand for? Toggle button pressed. To toggle the state, press space bar. Heading level 4 answer. The logo GE for more. GE. How can heading level 4 answer?
Oh, and it kept my second one open, even though I wanted to just open the first one. So it's got both of them open now. And if I pull a headings list with insert F6.
Heading list dialog. Headings list view. General 3. Answer 4. Answer 4. 8 of 11.
So now I've got two headings at level 4 that just say answer, and I have no idea which question that corresponds to. And that's with the Accessibee overlay turned on.
So that was the problem that she had before, right? Was a heading list with all these answer, answer, answer. So Accessibee, not only they changed the answer level, the heading level from a 6 to a 4, and then they still didn't give any context around it. So this is not a solution, right? The technology is not there yet. And I don't know. Okay, so this one is, where did my mouse go? This one is the buttons and headings and the confusion. So this is probably the most egregious part of this whole experience. So let me play this one really quick.
All right, so one more thing I want to show you while Accessibee is turned on. All right.
Nope, stop. Sorry, guys, this is not, okay. So, Desiree, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're on slide 149.
Okay. So we just saw that confusion with all the headings and buttons. So 149. Hold on a second.
Do you want me to just cover this?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm trying to
orient it to that next one. So basically, Accessibee activated without Desiree's input. It created buttons and didn't give any explanation about how to use the buttons. When buttons were pressed, it recreated the broken heading structure within with the answer headings inside of her heading list. The heading labels should be distinct, but the answer headings are all the same, and there's no additional markup provided for blind users to know which question each answer or heading is associated with. Accessibility tried to avoid skipping levels of headings, so it used ARIA to change the original heading level from a 6 to a 4, but that was actually more confusing because Desiree had already realized that these are supposed to be at heading level 6. So it did not help, and it did it without asking her.
And I would add too that, so that was in Chrome. When I was in Edge, tabbing didn't automatically activate it, but when I hit the skip to main content link, it automatically turned on the accessibility the screen reader mode without telling me. So
You know a product is bad when people actually write code called Accessibility Gone to get rid of it on these websites because it's so problematic. So Accessibility is in trouble right now. They had the FTC, filed a suit against them, and then they ended up settling and paying $1 million because of false advertising of saying that they, could fix these problems with one line of code. And they were also basically paying people to say good things about their company. And so they got in trouble over that. And then AudioEye, they have a trusted certification statement. And they have this badge, and it says, the badge basically says that testing and discovery is ongoing with continuous monitoring, and also that remediation and validation is ongoing. That's what they say in their trusted certification statement. And it also says that the Trusted by AudioEye badge, this badge that you see on the screen here, represents a commitment to accessibility and digital inclusion. Again, I'm very committed to running 25 miles a week. Just want to say that again. So Desiree, have you found your place yet? We're on 152.
Yep.
Okay, I'll let you go from here.
All right. So, there's a testimonial here of AudioEye, of the AudioEye site, and it just happens to be from someone that actually runs all of the websites for my school district, and it's called Final Site. And so every site that's designed by them uses the AudioEye thing here. So he's basically saying that he's comforted in knowing that as soon as AudioEye is turned on, it's totally accessible. But we're going to find out that it isn't. And actually, I did call the school. I ran into some barriers with the site when my kids first started school, and they said, "Oh, but it's totally accessible. We have AudioEye on there. You should not have any trouble if you're using whatever your technology that you're using is." But it did not actually address any of my barriers. So
Desiree we spent a lot of time exploring AudioEye on the school website together. And we looked at all of the options, and we thought by the name of the tool, AudioEye, that it would be for blind people too, right? But it's not. So the tools that are available are really not for them. So we're now on slide 154. Do you want to talk about the features, or you want me to do that real fast so we can get to the video? Because I think
I don't know how much time we had. I thought we had a whole other hour.
We have 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
On these things, and then let you talk about the videos. So this is a screenshot of the AudioEye toolbar, and it does have quite a lot of quote unquote personalization issues on there. Things that you can use if you're sighted. And it also has this navigate by page structure where they try to emulate how a screen reader user can navigate by headings or regions or things like that for people that don't have that assistive technology. Okay, so that's kind of what their toolbar looks like. And there was nothing on there that would help Desiree at all as a blind user. So this is the video of us trying to go through how to get to some resources on the district site.
Heading Level 1 District and Community Resources. Heading Level 2 District, and please click a link below for a District and Community Resource listing. Link District and Community Resources opens a new window. Heading Level 2 Services available for Heading Level 2.
Oh, there's nothing there.
Food Support Heading Level 2 button collapsed. Heading Level 2.
Oh, there's another one.
NCSD Mental Health Heading Level 2 button. Heading Level 2. Dental health.
Dental health was what I was looking for. It looks like that in between each of these link button options are empty heading level 2s, and JAWS kind of sounds like it's asking a question. And usually when it does that, the reason is that the code is not semantically correct and JAWS is confused. It doesn't quite know what to make of it. Is this going to be text under here? Because typically a heading has text in it, or it's followed by text, not by another kind of element. So JAWS doesn't quite know how to read this to me.
Okay, so we have a lot of other examples of stuff, but I think we've only got like 8 minutes left. So it's decision time again. This is your session, all right? So we had the 3, 2, 1 thing that we were going to do together where you talk about, you know, whatever those things were. 3 things that you've learned, 2 things that, I don't know, you need to know more about, and 1 thing that you're going to do immediately. Do you guys want to do that, or do you want to see some more stuff about overlays? More overlays. Okay, we're moving on, moving on. We're going to get to look at some more code here in just a minute. So Desiree,
Heading
we are
level
now
1
on,
district.
oopsie, wrong. 156. Okay, this is me. So in the video, when she was navigating through these buttons, these are buttons, she got to the the beginning of the button, and that's where the JAWS said, what? The heading level 2? I don't know what that is, right? That's because he didn't know how to interpret the code. So here's an example of the code. All right. So, and I have this developer that has a sign that says that's just wrong on the slide, because it is. So at the very top, you have this thing called header role equals presentation. Header is a type of region. In this particular site, overused headers like wildly, right? That's supposed to be the banner at the very top of your page. They have them all over this page. There's like 13 of them. So they're misusing headers, okay? And they're putting role of presentation on it, thinking, oh, well, JAWS will just ignore it, right? But JAWS doesn't ignore it because inside of it, it has other semantic markup that JAWS can't ignore. So the first thing that JAWS sees is the H2. That's why it said heading level 2, right? Because it's expecting to see text inside of that heading, but instead of text, it has an anchor tag with a role of button, so, and an href. So it's basically got 3 roles, and JAWS doesn't know what to do with it. Is it a heading? Is it a button? Is it a link? Because all those things are different, right? So that's just wrong. And if AudioEye is continuously monitoring and continuously doing all this stuff, something this bad for an end user should be fixed, right? But it's not. It's there. So access is still denied. So we're on 158. Desiree, do you want to go through this one, or do you want me to?
Yeah. So, as we mentioned before, there really aren't very many options available to me through AudioEye that my screen reader doesn't do. One of the things that it does offer is navigating by page structure. However, what that does is just pull up a list, like I get my headings list or my regions list. And when I did it with regions, whether I was using the AudioEye page navigation tool or my screen reader, there were like 15 different regions and landmarks, and they were not properly labeled. So that's another example of where it's not been remediated, because that definitely is a violation.
So now we're going to look at the visual stuff, right? Because AudioEye had all those visual personalization things. This is an example. This is a screenshot of the top part of the elementary school where her daughter goes to school. And this is what it looks like, because they use what's called a sticky header that's semi-transparent. So as a keyboard user, the keyboard focuses on this link volunteer. Behind this cloudy red thing, you've got this bright white letters, and then you have some other letters that you can sort of see in between. And you have if you're a keyboard only user, you're stuck there. You can't see anything. And this is not a violation of anything in WCAG 2.1, but this is one of the new things that they have in WCAG 2.2, that you can't use these sticky headers or sticky footers to cover up content if you're navigating as a keyboard user. So the next thing is, from their trusted tester certification, this is the Spidey sense stuff going on, marketing versus reality, okay? They say AudioEye, the AudioEye certification process may involve a combination of automatic and accessibility expert testing with the goals of doing all these things, like making stuff accessible. So it's like right on the edge, right? It's not saying that they do it. It's just, it's marketing. It's not reality. So here's an example of them. One of their features, the visible features, was to highlight buttons. So on the left, you have some buttons that are the expand collapse button. And this is what they look like. They're, white image on a red background. When I turn button highlight on, it turns it yellow. I can't do anything about that color. I can't tell it that I can't see that. That's my option. So is this better or worse without that visual, effect? Okay, so how important is consistency to all of you? So when Microsoft and Google, change their interface, do you love that?
No.
That make your day? You just love it, don't you? Okay. And what about when you go to the grocery store? They've rearranged your grocery. Oh, that's my favorite, right? We all love that. We love it when things change. But how many of you say, I think I'm going to try different interface components on my banking app today? I think that would be fun, wouldn't it? Just to kind of spice things up a little bit, right? This is what we're asking people with disabilities to do with overlays, right? So every overlay has their own way of doing stuff. So on this screen, we're showing different keyboard shortcuts, one for AudioEye, one for Accessibility. They mean different things depending on the overlay. So you go to your banking website, they're using AudioEye. You go to your kid's school and they're using Accessibility, and now your keystrokes don't do the same things, right? Because why not, So this is another overlay, UserWay. They don't even have keyboard shortcuts for people with motor impairments. So you choose a user profile on theirs, and then they give you something to let you play animations and to see tooltips for things. So that's if you're a speech to text user and you need to know what the name of a button really is, they'll throw a tooltip up there so you know what to call the button, right? But you don't have keyboard shortcuts here, but maybe you need keyboard shortcuts. But you don't have any choice of whether or not that site has UserWay or Accessibility or AudioEye, because that's a decision for the website developer. It's not for the user. The user has no control over this. Here's another one. EqualWeb is another one. Again, for motor impairments. They have keyboard navigation. They don't appear to have any keyboard shortcuts. They do add enhanced visible focus, and they put a whole ton of skip links that you have to sit there and tab through tab through tab through tab through skip links. So that you activate one of the skip links, it takes you back down into the code somewhere. Well, now I want to go back to my skip link menu, right? No, I have to back up every tab stop all the way back to the top if I'm going to do that. Okay, so again, different experience every page you go on. This is not what any of us like, and we shouldn't be doing this to people with disabilities. So overlays appear. This is your soapbox, Desiree. We'll close it up with this.
Yes. So, the bottom line of all this is that these overlay companies overstate their capabilities and they overpromise what they can deliver, and they underperform in terms of truly ensuring that that the user an accessible user experience. So when companies make claims that they're doing more than they're actually doing, then it hurts everybody. It hurts all of us. And I think a lot of times, honestly, a lot of these companies think that they're doing the right thing by employing these overlays, and they're misled too. So it's not just, it's not just the company themselves. They might want to be accessible. And so they think, oh, if I put this overlay on, it's going to work. And, people like myself find out that it doesn't, and we go to the company and say it's broken, but they've been misled too. So I think that's the real truth, is that if you have a company that really means well, showing them that using the overlay is not the answer, and there's no peace of mind and there's no security really fully in using these things.
Yeah, it's a false sense of security. So that guy's peace of mind when AudioEye is turned on came at the expense of Desiree's access, right? Because he's not learning about accessibility. He thinks AudioEye is taking care of it. He's not digging in to try to figure this stuff out because AudioEye is taking care of it. I just want to thank all of you for hanging in with us to the very bitter end. I'm so sorry for all the technology problems and how it sort of had to change the trajectory of our session, but hopefully you learned a thing or two.
Yes.